Fashion businesses take years to build, and they are not a hobby. You have to be very hardworking, very resilient, and very, very consistent. It can be very demoralizing sometimes with the ups and downs, but like any other business, you have to work hard at it. So in today's episode, I am going to just give you a few pointers on what you really need to think about when you are setting up your fashion business, because sometimes the foundation is usually the problem. It's not necessarily that your ideas are bad. And it's also good to know what your weak points are and what your strengths are so that you can know what to compensate for. So let's get into this. Welcome. Hey, I hope you have watched last week's episode, which was actually about what you need to consider when you want to go and study fashion. This actually just builds up on what I talked about last week, so I really hope you've watched it. I think it will be very, very helpful, because in that specific video I did not really focus on designing, but in today's episode I'm going to focus more on designing, because what I do, I am a fashion designer, so I have to I have more information on what you need to do to set up your fashion business. I am not talking about to make it successful, but just setting it up. That explains things like the licenses you need to get, just some things that you need to set up a business, basically. So my focus will be fashion design, and it will be based in Kenya. So I am going to focus on Kenya because that is what I know, and maybe some information will overlap depending on which country you are in. The video today is going to be in slideshow form, so you can be able to take screenshots if you need for the information I'm giving you. And also, if you want to write notes, it's easier to pause if the information is written down. So I'll probably just do voiceovers. There are 12 points, so at least, hopefully this video won't be as long, but we'll see. And also, just remember that designing is only 10% of what a fashion designer is supposed to do. Only 10, because you have to make money from those designs. So you will see some of the things that people usually do not think about when they think they want to get into fashion, and they have not considered all the other parts. So welcome, enjoy the slideshow. See you at the end. What to call your brand. What to call your brand matters, because the name or the phrase you call your brand will mean something to someone, or they'll be able to relate it to whatever it is you are making. So you have to really, really consider the meaning or the association people will think of when they see your brand name. You also have to think about it in terms of global, if it's available globally, if it's not, or even what it means there. Maybe it's something very offensive, you never know. But it's always good to think about your brand with a global mindset, whether or not your brand goes global. Business registration. I came across two websites that I found generally very, very useful, and I encourage you to go there to learn even more, because I'm only just going to point out the types of registration you could do that I found overview, and I have not exhausted them. I don't think I have. So if you have your business name, the simplest way to register is to register your business name, but that generally means you're a sole proprietor, and it also means that you and your business are one, meaning that you'll share one PIN number with your business, and generally you will still have access to a lot of services that businesses have. If you want your MPESA till number, that's mobile money till number, you can get it with that PIN. You can get a bank account for your business with that PIN. So generally it's the most basic business registration you can do, and it also secures your name. At least in Kenya, no one else can register your name with it. So generally, to secure business name, you need like three options, because when you go online, because you have to actually do it online, when you go online to check and you pay for the search, your first option, if it's not available, then you might consider your second option, your third option, and try and make them as similar as possible, at least similar in what it means for your business. So go through everything in that site. That's the simplest one that I encourage anyone who is in business to do, because at least you'll still have access to the services to be able to help you continue transacting business and even just to get opportunities. National government documentation for your business. So if you are in Kenya, I'm sure you're aware that we have national government and county government. So this specifically is for what the national government expect from you. Not everything on this list applies to your business as you begin, but you're expected to comply with them as you proceed to run your business. So these are very basic. You can get them in all government sites. There are some things that might not apply to you if you are not a retailer. Like a retailer will need 16% VAT. KEBS stickers. KEBS is for standardization. Sometimes that's more important when you're exporting more than when you're in here. Or if you are supplying a retail store that needs this verification. So some of them apply, some of them don't, but there are some that are mandatory. And one thing that a lot of people forget is that you are also an employee in your own business. So having NHIF and NSSF and pay as you earn, all that, you are supposed to deduct it from your own salary as well as your employees, because you're an employee of your business. Even if you've registered as a sole proprietor, it's best to run it like that. So keep that in mind as you try to comply with the government documentations that you need. So for the county government, the documentation that you need is listed in this slide. And as you can see that there are some that are very, very different from what was in the national government documentation. Although I understand that in some business premises, especially in Nairobi, you are required to also show tax compliance to show that you pay your taxes to the national government. The county government just enforces that, but the taxes go to the national government. So you cannot have a retail shop or you cannot trade in Nairobi without an operating license, especially if you're in a public place. Even if you're a hawker, there are charges for that. If you are in a business premise, there are charges for that. There are a lot of things that they check: the number of employees you have, the size of the place, even the location matters, because sometimes some locations are more expensive. You have to have fire safety. They come and inspect. You also actually have to have the fire extinguisher in your premise displayed with the expiry date, which they keep, apparently they keep coming to check to see if it's still operational. You also pay for the sign, even the name of your business on the door and everything, you pay for it. Insurance is advisable, but I think very soon to become compulsory, and parking as well. Most public parking is paid to the county government. If it's private, then you don't have to pay to the county, but you have to pay to wherever you are located. Yeah, so those are things that you need to consider. Day-to-day running of your business. Some of the things that are often overlooked when you're trying to structure your fashion business is that you mainly may only focus on the design part and maybe marketing and maybe packaging on how you'll deliver your clothes to your customers. But there is so much to consider. Location is, of course, you always hear location is one of them. So it really does depend on if you are just making your clothes in a certain location and then you distribute them and you sell them to other shops, stockists. They're called stockists, at least here in Kenya, that's what we call them. Then your location will be more about where your workshop is and how accessible it is. One mistake that people do make that they don't consider when they're choosing a location, especially for their workshop, if it's separate from the shop, is that you have to make it accessible to yourself and to the people who work for you. Because if you make it very difficult for your employees to access your location, then you might have an added cost on transport. So other things to consider are if you're going to do your production in-house or not, because it depends on the stage and how much money you have. Human resource, basically the rights of your employees, your own rights as a boss, because some employees can take advantage of you. Just generally code of conduct on how you'll be operating. Communication between you and your customers is going to be via text, is going to be via WhatsApp, email, calling. Personally, I would advise you always have it written down somewhere. Even if you call your customer, have a follow-up email where you will say, as per our conversation, or even message or text, whatever it is, always have records, because sometimes things can really go south with customers. Same to your employees. Time management is also very crucial, because you need to know how long it takes you to make something, and you need to be able to communicate that to your tailors, because you need to manage their time, and also to your clients, so they can also know how long it takes. Also consider different revenue streams. Maybe you make clothes, but you have fabrics that are left over that you can make other things that can give you money. Also consider that there are some things you pay for, like subscriptions, that membership to trade communities and stuff like that you might need to pay for. So keep that money aside as well. Things that you'll outsource, like maybe you have to outsource a lawyer or an accountant, or just someone who does things for you, or even just outsourcing production sometimes if the work is a lot. Always remember your bills, because they help running. One of the things that people don't consider that is actually very important is catering. That is specifically to your tailors, what they will be eating when you're in a workshop, because you would rather provide that you also manage time. And also machine maintenance is a major one that people don't consider, and it's usually like one of the biggest headaches that you can have, because you're supposed to do it at least every 3 months. So that's just the basics of what I thought I should point out now. This is for someone who's considering to start at the very beginning, the things they should think about. Maybe some of them won't all apply at a go, some will, but I just thought this is a good list to start with, and then you can add as you grow. And always remember, building a team and a proper business structure is very crucial to success. Logistics. At times, people don't seriously think through logistics, because maybe sometimes it's more one-on-one with your customer, but as you grow, it becomes more complex, and even as you export. So I have written a list of things you should consider, and this really is more important when you're a bigger brand, because you might even need to think about working with a logistics partner. Even the companies you use, whether it's local or international, like example, if you're doing deliveries in like Nairobi, you might need to use G4S, Wells Fargo. People who've been established for a while, maybe using the local transport person might not work very well for you. There are companies like Sandy that actually offer fulfillment now, where they keep your things if they're fast moving, and then they ship it out for you. Then they do the back end record keeping as well, so that you can know how many items you have. So there are very many things to consider for logistics, and it really just depends on the stage you are in. But it's always good to have a plan. You know, when you're writing that business plan and you're thinking about 10 years ahead, it's always good to have a plan on who you might want to work with, because it will give you time to even investigate and see how their customer service is, and how they work with people, and their policies and everything like that. So even warehousing, I learned that if you ship in large quantities abroad, you have to have someone who's going to receive them on that side, and who's going to be able to distribute it, maybe to the person, maybe the retailer you're selling to. Like, there are very many aspects you have to think about. You have to have systems to manage your inventory. You might not be able to do it physically. How you're distributing, maybe you are distributing to your shop and other shops, and how materials are handled, maybe even the packaging you use, everything. Like, it's very I've not exhausted it in this list, so make sure that you do check out more about this. Payment options. There are very many payment options. Some of the most common, of course, are cash and even cards, debit and credit cards. In Kenya, what's very popular is MPESA, which is mobile money. There's also options like digital wallets such as PayPal, PesaPal. There are platforms that actually offer payment services, and they will also display your clothes like a marketplace or whatever in their sites. Gift cards are also very good. Cash on delivery is also very, very popular in Kenya. So my advice would be always just make sure the platform you're using is secure, especially with online transactions. Make sure it's an established place that have good cybersecurity that can deal with anything that might happen. I can say that things like Bitcoin basically are not yet very popular, but I have seen some establishments that have cryptocurrency as a payment option. So always be open-minded and just make sure you understand what you're getting yourself into. Sourcing considerations. You have to think about where you get what you use from. So whether you are bringing them in from overseas or you get them locally, you have to actually think about it, because it's usually an added cost that sometimes we don't consider. The quality also matters, because the problem is if you buy the wrong type of thing, you have to replace it, and then it's a whole cycle. So my advice will always be have samples before you buy a whole lot of fabric or a whole lot of zips or whatever. Always have samples, test them, make things with them, and then decide on if that's what you'll want to use, especially if you're doing ready to wear or you have more control over the fabrics you want to use. If you're importing, you have to think about the trade regulations between the countries. You have to think about technology. You have to think about the communication, because even the person you buy from has to have good communication. You have to think about how long it takes for you to get the materials. You have to think about the quality. You have to think about how cost effective it is, and just so many other things. So this is not an exhaustive list again, but it's a way to get you thinking through your business and what you want to do and what you want to use. Sales and marketing. I decided to combine this list somehow because they are always related, because they help each other. So sales basically is for you to think about what avenues you're using to sell your things on. So it could be online where it's e-commerce, your own website. It could be a multi-brand store. It could be stockists. I mentioned that word before, meaning it could also be a multi-brand stockist shop. Actually, multi-brand could be maybe you partnered with other designers, or stockist where someone already stocks various things and then you sell there. Even a supermarket can be a stockist. Craft fairs and trade fairs, I didn't really know which side to put them on, because they always act as marketing, because it's usually a very temporary event where you sell at, or it could be your main source of selling if you maybe mainly sell online. So I guess it depends on where you decide to put it. Wholesale is also a very good way. It's very rare, but it's a very good way to sell. Marketing, of course, the social media. Showroom is something a lot of people don't consider, but it's usually maybe like an exhibition type format where you'll be able to leave your things in a space for a while, like a display thing for a week or something, and then people interact with your work. You could even be there to talk to customers. Fashion shows, media campaigns, could be traditional media or even social media. Influencers are also a marketing source. Also magazines, whether it's online or physical, and many more. I know I haven't exhausted it, and I know there's some things that I may have mixed up, but either way, it's a good way to get you thinking about selling and marketing. Record keeping. You have to keep records of your business so that you can actually know how you are doing. And I'm not saying that I'm an expert at this, but I know it's important. Even if you can't do very complex records, it's better to just keep simple records. You can do it in a physical book, which is not sustainable, trust me. You can also do it with an app. An app is probably the easiest because you have your phone and you're always going around. You can use that. You can also just have an accountant, whether you hire one or you outsource one, maybe every month to check on your accounting. It's just important to do it, especially if you're going to do your taxes. It's just good to have good accounting records. And also if you intend to apply for funding opportunities in the future to expand your business, it's always good to have those. Also just so that you're compliant with the government and you end up not owing the government any money. So some of the records you keep, of course, are profits, income, expenditure, planning and investment. Yes, you have to actually plan to invest in your business. Maybe discounts you've given customers are things you have to write. Maybe sources of funding. Maybe you got funding, you have to write that down. So those are just some of the basic records you should consider keeping. Business-based organizations. So in this, I basically mean things like the Fashion Council, fashion associations, trade organizations, trade programs, government programs. I have been part of different types of all these. And the beauty of it is that it actually helps you network. It helps you with training, additional training outside of maybe what you've learned, especially if you don't want to go to school to specifically only just learn business. So some of these programs offer short courses that are very, very helpful. And it's also a good way to create a community of people, meet a community of people who do what you do and you learn from each other. So a lot of the information I've also shared today has come from all these classes I have done. I've just compiled them and I haven't even exhausted everything I've learned. So definitely join some of these organizations. Some of them are free, some of them you pay, some of them you pay for maybe only the training. So also just gauge what you can do and start with what you can do and move on from there. Some even offer opportunities to expand your business to international markets. So always be open, and also sometimes you get access to industry people who are way more advanced, and you can be able to get even more information from them that you'll only have access to because you joined that organization. So definitely check them out. I hope that you found the information useful. I would like to say that just because I've been in the industry for a while doesn't mean I have all those things figured out. As I said at the beginning, it takes years to set up a fashion business, and so some things will take time. The whole point of showing you that list was so that you can be able to prioritize what you think you could be able to start with and what you should leave out. Example, you don't have to have a workshop if you can't afford to buy multiple machines. You can outsource your production. If you don't have a machine, you can still outsource your production if you are not able to sew yourself, because some of us, we started with sewing ourselves before we employed somebody. It really does take time. I always advise people the best way to start is to start with an internship, just so that you can be able to understand the nitty-gritties of running a business. It's always good to be able to go to someone who has been established for a while to learn from them. Also, if you cannot get an internship, then you can always check online as well. There's a lot of resources these days. Next week, I will be talking more about resources, online resources such as websites and apps that I use that have helped me throughout my career, whether it's for my business or just for my creativity. I'm going to share those. So hopefully that video won't be long. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm going to stop promising short videos or long videos. But I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have any questions specific to setting up your business or anything you think I left out, comment section is always open. You can also email me if you have other specific questions. I do consulting sometimes depending on the need you have. Sometimes I would suggest to just do a full consultation for your business. And as I said, I'm not an expert. If you just feel like the information I'm giving you is good enough to hire me to help you set up, then I'm more than willing to do it. I have done it before. My very first job was setting up a whole fashion house, and it ran for a couple of years. So setting up, I know how to do. Trying to figure out systems, the kind of records you need to do, I know. Specifically for small fashion brands, not necessarily for a big factory. That's a whole other ball game. But I also do small scale. I also help people with their small scale production. Not everybody wants to run a whole factory, but sometimes people want to produce and outsource the factory, so I do that as well. So I just thought that would be helpful for you to know. And yeah, I hope the information was helpful, and I guess I will see you next week. Bye! before I forget, in case you are in fashion and your business did not make it through maybe the pandemic or any other issues that may have happened, please don't think that your career is over. Being a fashion designer doesn't maybe is just what you need to do, and maybe not run a whole fashion business. So you can still get a job as a fashion designer. I just thought I needed to point that out because I know a lot of people who've had to close their fashion businesses because of the pandemic or other factors. So I just wanted to point that out. Please be encouraged. It's not the end for you. If designing is your passion, don't give up on it. There are very many ways you can still design. Okay, I guess I'll see you next week.